Happy New Year, everybody. Yes, what a time to be alive. 2025. I can't believe I made it this far. And this is Fight Court. I'm Dean Thomas. My man Ryan Quinn joining me. Ryan, everybody does New Year's resolutions. Did you have a New Year's resolution?
I do not. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions not because people break them, but because I feel like people do New Year's resolutions as an excuse to procrastinate. Oh, I'll put that off until next year. I'll put that off until January. When you should really be just being the best you could be every day, right?
Ain't that preach, my brother, preach. So you couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. If I have a New Year's resolution, if I think of a New Year's resolution, right, it's going to be the January 7th resolution because I want to get to it. That's how I feel about it.
I thought you was going to say January 6th. I was saying, you're not going to go storm the Capitol again, are you?
Well, that New Year's resolution didn't work out for me a few years ago.
Oh, man. So holidays just passed. Thank God, because, we're back with some fights this weekend and January 18th with UFC 311. And UFC is back again February 1st. So we rocking and rolling. We in the groove. But before we get into the fight stuff, how were the holidays for you? What the hell did you do during this time off?
My whole house was sick. So once I got better, I was taking care of people. But family came down, took advantage of that. Honestly, I got some stuff for the podcast. So you're going to see my background. It's going to be more than just a white wall and my curtain coming up, and can't wait for that. So, but yeah, it was cool. And then, yeah, just chill. What about you? What did you do for the holidays?
Man, I took a road trip. I didn't have any Sirius XM radio. I didn't have no UFC stuff. So I took a road trip up to Boston, stopping in New York. Then from Boston, stopped in Philly, spent a couple days there. So I was going for a week just on this road trip up the East Coast and during the cold. And it was fun, man. I spent Christmas Day in the Poconos in like a cabin that I thought I was in the North Pole. I had no food, man. Luckily, there was like a little gas station like open till noon that I was able to get to before they closed.
It was like
to buy a bunch of gas station food on Christmas. I had no food. And I was like, yo, this was kind of a bad idea, but it worked out. Like it was a good time, man. I got a chance to binge watch a lot of Game of Thrones and just kind of spend some time with myself, getting to know myself.
Is this the first time you're watching Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I'm finished now though. I finished it.
All right. How good? What'd you think?
It was excellent.
Yeah, it is. It's so good.
It's definitely one of them things that it was so good that you didn't realize how good it was until it was over.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, I got to go back and watch it again because I know there's a lot of stuff that I missed.
Yeah, you'll enjoy watching it again. I watched it again for, like last year. I binge watched it again. But, a lot of people hate the last season. I always make fun of my wife and Mo. I was like, you guys are like a Game of Thrones is that ex-lover that broke your heart because they hate the last season so much, and how it could have been. I was like, what are you gonna do with it? What were you gonna do?
Yeah,
I thought it was all right. And dude, the storytelling was so like I feel like Jaime Lannister was. I've never seen character arc like that in any character in any movie or show ever.
Well, when you look at all the characters, like the character arc of everybody was excellent. It was either they started off as a pussy and turned into like a major boss, or they started off as a major boss and died.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the character arc for all the characters, I mean, it was great storytelling, great narration, just incredible filmmaking. So I started to give House of Dragon a chance just because it was so good.
It's really good too.
House of Dragon?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I thought it was okay up until they did this 10-year time dash and took away the only character that I really fell in love with.
Who? Which one?
The Targaryen girl.
Oh, the younger girl?
The little young Targaryen slut.
Well, now she's an older slut.
Well, man, I can't even watch it no more. I'm like, yo, how did they just time, like, no warning, just time dash and took away the one character that I really completely like connected with, a
That was
blonde-headed slut. Oh man, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go back and give it a shot.
We've been watching Cobra Kai. We're finishing up Cobra Kai, but Landman. If you haven't seen Landman yet, it's really good. It's Billy Bob Thornton, and it's about oil drillers in West Texas. And actually, it's in Midland, where our friend Brad is from, which is pretty crazy.
I'm in there.
Yeah, and Billy Bob Thornton just had not Billy Bob Thornton. Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, just had a cameo in it last week. Dude, he smoked it. I gotta send you the clip. I would have never thought that guy can act, and he actually smoked his cameo. Yeah, it was insane. But
well, that's the good thing about TV these days, man. There's a lot of things to watch. So many things to watch because of the streaming. Like as an actor, like I'm an actor. As an actor, like I feel like there's so many different opportunities to be on get some type of work, some type of TV. Netflix. And that brings me to my next thing, Netflix. You know, Netflix, they got into the boxing realm with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson over the weekend. And I'm sure you probably saw this because you're a wrestling fan. WWE had their event, and I heard the production was excellent, which brings me to my next point. Logan Paul and Conor McGregor. That has Netflix written all over it if it's going to happen.
Yeah, is that legit? And I don't mean legit like the actual fight. Like, is it actually going to happen?
Well, you know, no one knows. No one knows if it's going to happen, but they got this Indian businessman, very wealthy Indian businessman. I don't have his name in front of me right now, but the one thing that I do remember about him is he's worth $121 billion. And he wants to make this fight happen between Logan Paul and Conor McGregor. Now, Conor McGregor is all on board, talking about $250 million for him and Logan Paul. I guess maybe they're going to both get 250 mil. But Logan Paul hasn't said anything. His only response to this whole thing were he had emoji eyes towards Conor McGregor. But other than that, he hasn't said anything. And the only thing he has said was that he was committing himself to the WWE this year.
Okay. I mean, well, I've been following WWE as closely lately, but if he is under contract with the WWE, he can't promote another event, especially one that would probably be on Netflix.
No, but that's the thing, though. You got to think about it like this, though. It seems like they're all in bed together, Ryan.
Okay,
they're all under TKO.
Oh, this guy's with yeah.
Okay. Well, no, he's not, but I mean, Conor's under TKO, Logan's under TKO. This guy might come in and pay for it. To me, it's a realistic possibility if
money talks.
Logan wants to do it, right? I think it's a realistic possibility if WWE is like, all right, we're going to take 25 million and UFC is going to take 25 million, probably more. We're going to take 50 million. And so if this is going to happen, it's a realistic possibility. I think that Logan would have to agree to if he really wants to do it. Now, 250 million, I don't know many people who's going to turn down money like that.
Yep.
Like now I would fight for 250 million.
I would fight you.
I wouldn't train it all though. It wouldn't be worth it to anybody. I'd just show up and be like, fuck yeah. I'd just show up and fight like Dada 5,000.
Yeah. I didn't train for this and I ain't training tomorrow either.
I ain't training for this. I ain't training tomorrow. Just sign my goddamn check.
Yeah. Man. I mean, that brings up a good point. That's a lot of money. And I mean, you could totally lease out these athletes from the UFC and WWE. You know, if you're gonna, yeah. I guess there is legs to it. Now, that's interesting though, because there is a big push behind Logan Paul in WWE. In fact, so big, I wouldn't be surprised if they put the belt around him at WrestleMania next year. They're really behind him. They're really backing him. Now, but it's just so interesting. Everyone brings up, and I knew they were going to do it. Then they bring up with Conor on the UFC side where Dana White said, no, nobody's boxing with Francis. And then now this.
Yeah, but it's not like Conor's like, yeah, I'm fighting Canelo. I'm
Yeah,
fighting
it's
David
true.
Benavidez. No, he's like,
Mhm.
I'm fighting Logan Paul. And it kind of makes sense. The problem is, like, I said this earlier on Sirius, is that I don't want to see Conor win. And I know, like, it's bad for MMA if Conor loses. It just makes MMA look like a sham. It'll make Conor look bad, but more than anything else, it makes MMA fighters look like a sham. But
I don't agree with you there. I feel like if this fight happened right after he lost to Dustin, then yeah. But the fact that so much time has gone by, he's doing movies, he's been in trouble, there's bad evidence of drug and alcohol abuse. Like, I think that Conor McGregor is just the circus act he is at this point. I don't think it does anything bad for MMA.
Well, that's part of the reason why I think that this fight has legs.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Because you think the UFC wants to take him after all the shit that he's been through?
No.
You think the UFC's the next time he fights, the UFC is like, and I'm sure they would, but this is a great buffer for him to get people to forget about his past transgressions. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a great buffer. Like, if he can go out there and knock out Logan Paul, we forget that he threw a dolly through a bus. We forget that he's got these sexual assault charges. We forget all the bad stuff that he's done. We forget that horrible performance in Roadhouse.
No, I can't forget that.
Well, but we'll forget about all these bad things if he knocks out Logan Paul. Then he'll be invited back to the UFC as a winner again. But as of right now, it's like, does the UFC really want to bring this guy in and take a chance on him? Can they really trust him and take a chance on him? I think this is a great buffer for the UFC to see what he's got in terms of combat before they even take a chance on him.
It is a winning situation because me personally, I mean, I don't really talk with people about this, but maybe I'll ask you. Well, I'll give you my response and then I'll see what you think. There is no fight that interests me with Conor McGregor right now in the UFC. Absolutely none. There's nothing that I'm interested in to see him do. So, yeah, maybe this will waft his fan or his sales a little bit, you know? Yeah, go do it. Let's see what happens. Get paid. But then again, if he gets paid, he's going to go like after the Mayweather fight. Yeah, I guess whatever. Just go see what happens. Go to the candy store.
So, all right, now moving along. Mm-hmm. So the UFC dropped some really big fights, actually. So, I mean, they already had this fight this weekend. Amanda Hebus, Mackenzie Dern already planned in the books. They had UFC 311, Islam Makhachev, Arman Tsarukyan. That already planned out. Great card. Mm-hmm. February 1st with Israel Adesanya and Nasruddin Imavov already planned. And then they just dropped Henry Cejudo, Song Yadong, Rob Font, and Dominic Cruz. And Bellator comes out with news. They're allowing elbows.
Yeah. Dude, that Don Davis is a slick son of a bitch, man. He stole their thunder. He knew what he was doing with that. He knew what he was holding that in his back pocket for.
Why come out with that this week, man? This after a month of nothing going on. Why come out with that this week?
This was him. Yeah, let him announce it. Watch this. Hey, elbows, people, all season long.
Hey, but they're in trouble, man. PFL is in trouble. If you've seen, they're doing away with the $1 million tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
They're, I think, going down to 500,000. The whole tournament is silly to me anyway. But they're in trouble, and if they make it out of this year, I'll be surprised.
I already know that their Bellator is done. I have a very reliable source told me that Bellator is they're doing away with it and they're going to turn it into the PFL Challenger Series. So, which it basically is now anyway. Yeah, they're done. I mean, they really dropped the ball with those athletes that they signed that they could have done more with. I mean, Johnny Emblett, I think, has had 2 fights since the merger. I think at least one. But they could have really taken that opportunity with the co-promotions, Bellator versus PFL, and whoever wins, that's who you get behind. You know, let's build stars. was build athletes, but they didn't do it. And it clearly, I'm telling you, this is the whole reason they did that. And it sounds ridiculous, but I can't see any other way, because Bellator did have some names with some juice behind them. I truly believe that PFL bought Bellator just to block the UFC from purchasing those fighters, just to block the UFC from getting that talent. And then after that, they had no plan what to do with them. Sans Johnny Evelyn, but other than that, they didn't have any plans.
Well, here's my thing, man, is that this is proof that there's a witch hunt towards the UFC. Because think of it this way. Mm-hmm. When all this was happening, when Francis was going through his thing, everybody got behind Francis. Like the entire MMA community got behind Francis. Oh, Francis, he got his freedom. He's doing this for the fighters. He's going to the PFL. He's doing this, that, and the third. Man, since this is how long ago has that been? What has he done for the PFL? And simultaneously, Jake Paul was on the other side. Dana White this. Dana White doesn't pay the fighters. Dana White doesn't do this. He signed with the PFL. You have Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou as could be the faces of PFL. And they've done nothing for the PFL since they've been attached to the PFL.
It's because the PFL has no plans. Their plan is just stop them from going over there, and we'll figure it out after.
I mean, there was a time when it all happened. Like if they were really concerned about fighter pay and fighter conditions, there was a time when they had Francis, Jake Paul, Kayla Harrison, Cyborg. They had all the big names outside of the UFC all under their roster, ready to go, and could have had I think it was this time last year. They could have had a big year-end show to show that, hey, we're heavy players in the game. We got shit to do. Man, but they completely dropped the ball, and you don't hear nothing from Jake Paul about the PFL. You don't hear nothing from Francis really about the PFL. And now their tournament's going away. Bellator fighters can't get fights. It's a shit show, and everybody's quiet now. Everybody's quiet, just waiting for Dana to fuck up so that they can come down on Dana. That's what this is. That's all it was in the first place. Because if it was about fighters, those guys would have still been trying to promote the PFL to help fighters in their conditions. It's never been about that. It's always been about how can we bash Dana.
Isn't it so crazy? I think about this all the time. Like when people and companies are in this position, it's really amazing that Dana White and Don Davis, they both had this one thing in common. They were both only concerned about the UFC. Like that's what it is. Like,
yep, that's it. They had that in common. Both of them are solely focused on the UFC.
Yeah, it's like I can't remember any time aside from maybe the elbow news that he was like promoting PFL and then just like shitting on Kayla, shitting on the UFC, shitting on, they really dropped the ball. Like they keep dropping the ball. They had an opportunity a while back. I know somebody who interviewed for one of their like sales revenue positions, and he tried to pitch them like, you guys should really get behind. You're the one league promotion in all professional sports that is undisputed equal pay for both male and female, and equal opportunity for championship. Like the tournament, the pay, it's all, and you don't get behind that. And especially a couple of years ago, they could have really ran with that, and they just no, it's okay. We're gonna just take all UFC talent, and now we're gonna buy Bellator and do nothing. It's like shit.
I mean, it's sad. It is kind of sad, but to me, it's just more evidence that they didn't give a shit about the fighters like they said they did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a witch hunt to come down on Dana White to make it seem like he is this evil guy behind the curtain pulling all the strings and ruining MMA, when in fact that is not true.
I think that you just said with the thing about the fighters is why I have such a bad taste in my mouth about PFL, because they had some rise about 3 years ago. They were making steam. They were blowing past Bellator. But like you said, they just don't care about the fighters. and they could have done a lot to show they cared about fighters. And I hate when people say, "Oh, it's all like." Of course, whenever people don't know what they're doing, a lot of people right away assume it's money laundering and stuff like that. No, I think they had some serious money behind them, and they didn't know what to do. You know, they tried to be different, and then in their attempt to be different, they tried to go after the UFC, and they just ended up being the same as everything else. And so,
Well, if the PFL hasn't put enough stain on their reputation, in comes the GFL. Ironically, from PFL to GFL. I'm hoping that it's not the same situation, but it just has bad news written all over it. It's a fantasy league.
Yeah. You know, I still have so many questions about that. Like, you know, I tried to get in touch with Daryl Owen to get him on the show. He sent me their marketing. I'm going to email them after this. I'm going to try again. That'll be the third time. First of all, I mean, they should be getting their name out everywhere. They really should. They should be showing that they want to, you know, like we're a blue collar podcast. We want to promote to you people. They should be on people like our show. Anyway, I wonder if like is it a draft every year? You ever think of that, or is it?
I don't know. I don't know how they're. I don't know what the process is. I don't know if the process was okay. Let's sign 200 fighters, and then we're going to have 4 teams that are going to draft 10 fighters. I don't know if that's the process. I have zero idea how this process works. I just know that everybody I've spoken to that has or heard of that has been affiliated with this and gotten signed has signed for ridiculous, unbelievable amount of money. That it's easy to sign for that amount of money because they didn't have to pay them. It's not like they gave them a sign-in bonus.
They got paid just to be draft eligible?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think maybe
where do we sign?
I don't know if it's paid to get draft eligible. I think it's like you sign your contract, and then if you get drafted, that's probably what it is. Maybe.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. But just the whole idea of this is like insurance and retirement. I'm like, you haven't even thrown a show yet.
Yeah.
And you're giving them retirement plans. They haven't even had one show. So and you're giving retirement. It just sounds too good to be true, which means it's probably bullshit.
The funny thing, the 2 things that give me hope about this, outside of there's 3 things. We spoke about this would be the one format that could gain traction and compete with the UFC, but not compete with you. So we've spoken about this on the show before. So that's one thing. The other thing is that makes me feel hopeful about it is they don't have a sponsor. They have an investor, which means that they're not a sponsor will give you one show. The investor will give you a full season. So that makes me feel hopeful that they'll go at least a season. The third is when they were on Ariel Helwani, they talked about how they wanted to do this 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and it didn't line up. They wanted to make sure they could do it right. So they came back to it. Now they're doing it. So, okay, they recognize where they were flawed and they didn't make that mistake and jump into it. So they seem to have a pretty ironclad plan. But when I see people getting draft eligible, like Mark Coleman, Ken Shamrock, Vanderlei Silva, I mean, I don't know. I get a little cause for concern.
What? To me, if they wanted to do this 3 years ago and they said, no, let's not do it 3 years in the past, and let's wait 3 years because there was some mistakes. Now I'm looking at the format and their ideas that they've brought to the table 3 years prior or 3 years later. How bad were the mistakes then?
I think it was a money.
Because like I'm looking at this, I'm like, this ain't a mistake.
Yeah,
signing these, that ain't a mistake.
What I would do, so let's just play our own fantasy. What I would do, this is what I would do, because the way they have it, there's 6 teams or whatever, a little hard, like dual meets are a little, that's unrealistic. You know, I mean, as much as that sounds so cool, like IFL did, it's fairly unrealistic. What I would do is I would do seasonal power rankings. Like if you compete however X many times, like encourage the fighters to compete as much as possible. You get there, each team has seasonal power rankings. Win by decision is X amount of points. Finish in each round X amount of points, and then your playoffs, those final 4 teams or the championship, would be a dual meet with those guys. You put a dual meet. That's how I would do it, because it's just fighting is not game sports as much as I would love it to be. That's how I would go about it. We'll see when they open up to see what happens. The
I just
draft in 2 weeks.
well, here's the thing, man. Everybody that gets into this business, they overestimate how important they think certain fighters are, or how important they think they themselves are.
Yeah.
Fighters aren't as popular or as needle moving as they think they are. If you think Vanderlei Silva and Frank Mir is going to move a needle, you got another thing coming. You know, these guys are not going to move the needle like they think it is. And they think that, okay, we're going to split 50% revenue and these guys are going to make all this money. Well, it's 50% of little bit of money because no one's going to pay to watch it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Streaming platform
That's
right
what I'm saying. Who's going, like, I get it, man. Like, you can be a good fighter, but you have to be a fighter that people pay their money to watch.
Yep.
Like, there's not a lot of fighters out there that people pay their money to watch. Think about this. When Francis Ngannou fought, what's Big Boy? I can't remember his name right now. See, my point exactly.
Biggie Boy?
No, in PFL, his last fight.
Oh, I forget his name.
Whatever his name. Whatever.
Case in point.
Yeah, my point exactly. But in the U.S., they did 10,000 buys. 10,000 buys in the U.S. Dude, you can't 50% of that? Like, if that was the case, and that's Francis Ngannou, who's active, who just fought Anthony Joshua, who just fought Tyson Fury, who left the UFC and had the whole world riding his coattails to do good and succeed. And his first fight in the PFL, he did 10,000 buys in the U.S. You mean to tell me that Verdum is going to outdo that?
You know, I feel like a lot of these promotions, especially it's more prevalent with like regional promotions where, you know, you get fighters or ex-coaches or coaches, ex-fighters, whatever. They want to start this show and I want to be the promoter. I want to be the matchmaker. There's a lot more to it than that, you know, like who's working revenue, who's sponsorship marketing, you know, like you got to build your brand. And they think like, and I think about this all the time now. Like if I were promoting what I would do, like, how do you get something where people want to come see the brand? They want to come see the show and the fighters are a bonus because a lot of them, it's like, they think they do something different, but, I mean, okay. With the local level, I'm going to get a ticket seller, a big draw. And then at the big level, I'm going to get a guy like a Francis Ngannou that people are going to buy. But at the end of the day, nobody really cares about the fighters and they come and go. And then it's not sustainable. Let's say you're lucky and they do retire with you, they still retire. That's why like the UFC is a brand. You know, Dana White made himself a strong enough personality with all his faults. He's not going anywhere, you know. And these promotions are going to keep screwing up if they don't do things differently. And then that stuff with like you said with GFL, with all those used to be bigger names, it's like, come on, like if you're doing that, it's like, who wants to see those people get drafted?
Dude, they're going the wrong direction. This is what I like about David Feldman and BKFC, Karate Combat, these organizations that just said, you know what? We're going to stay in our lane and we're going to make our lane as big as we can for us. And that's what they've done. They've created a lane for themselves and not competition with anybody, just doing their own thing. And it seems to be working out for them, especially David Feldman. Just talking to that guy, he's been very gracious and hospitable when I've seen him and spoken to him. And I'm happy for him. I'm happy and I don't even like bare knuckle, but I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him. And I'm happy for all the fighters that do fight there because they all are happy and they all seem to be taken care of and they have a home. And I like that.
On the flip side, you know, we talked about, you know, we were just talking about how these promotions go, like they're set to fail. BKB, I always felt that BKFC was going to succeed. You know, a lot of people, they called MMA human cockfighting in the early 90s. And now in the BKFC, oh, it's so brutal. Like, not really. I feel like there's a market for that. Clearly there is, and they're prospering. So I'm really happy. Plus, we have friends who have somewhere to go and they're not in their prime, and it's I love that they're doing it. Good for you, David Feldman.
All right, Ryan, before we get out of here, I talked about all these big fights. I'm not going to run down a list, but you got to have at least one fight in your mind in this first quarter that you're looking forward to most.
I like the one that was announced this weekend, UFC London, Leon Edwards, Jack Della Maddalena. I think that's a pretty cool fight. I did not think, I thought that Leon was going to get another bigger name, to be honest with you, but I still think that's a great fight. It's a great fight,
man. Jack has the ability to beat him. Jack is tough as nails, man.
I love watching that dude. Watching that dude.
He's a savage. He comes to fight, man. So that's an interesting and a good fight. Yeah. As for me, I guess I'm gonna go Merab and Umar Nurmagomedov. Yeah. And not only because Merab came on the show a couple weeks ago, but I find that to be a very interesting stylistic matchup, with Merab's tenacity.
I agree.
With his tenacity and his buzzsaw attitude. And Umar's a better technician. And I just want to see how that plays out, the outcome of what happens in 5 rounds against these two athletes. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Another one, if I have to say another one, Jamal Hill and Yuri Prochazka.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one, too. That's my runner-up.
Yeah, that's a solid fight.
Yuri talks too much shit, so I don't get behind him,
Yeah. All right, well, Ryan, let's get up out of here, man. Let's do this again next week. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you think. And on that note, this court is adjourned.